I never expected my ex to mock me at the gala, until a billionaire swept me off my feet. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The lights were too bright, the laughter too loud, and my heart was about to shatter. I could feel the weight of the tuxedos and gowns around me, but their beauty felt like daggers against my already raw feelings. There he was, my ex, standing like a peacock, preening for the crowd. He leaned in, snickered at my vintage dress, and the pain clenched my chest like a vice. My eyes stung, hot tears threatening to spill. I held my breath, trembling hands gripping the side of the table like a lifeline. The room echoed with whispered comments. "He's so cruel. Look at her face." My cheeks felt like molten fire. Each laugh from him was a knife twisting in my heart. I was a joke, a fleeting memory for everyone to gawk at. My best friend, Julie, stood beside me, jaw clenched, ready to pounce on him. But I shook my head. I didn't want any more drama. Not tonight. The night swirled around me, bringing disappointing reminders of how my life turned upside down. 6 months ago, everything felt perfect. Family dinners, love notes tucked in coffee mugs. And then, silence. I lost him just like that. The darkness wrapped around me, pulling me down. But then, as if the universe decided to change the script, he walked in. The billionaire. He was impossible to misstall, with an air of confidence that practically pulsed off him. He cut through the crowd like a knife. His gaze landed on me, piercing through the haze. For a second, everything else disappeared. The darkness, the mocking, the laughter, it all faded. His smile was magnetic, pulling me in, and before I knew it, he was standing right next to me. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice smooth, a deep concern laced within it. My heart skipped. How could anyone be so captivating? I hesitated, my throat tightening. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him I was shattered. Instead, I just nodded. "Come dance with me," he said. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command wrapped in sweet allure. As he pulled me close, every doubt melted away. The music played a slow, captivating tune that whispered secrets. The world outside faded. We moved effortlessly, his touch igniting a million butterflies in my stomach. But as I swayed, I couldn't help but glance back at my ex. His face soured, disbelief etched across his features. The crowd was whispering again, this time in shock. I could feel their looks, their judgments cutting deep. Was I really moving on that easily? And then it hit me. What was I doing? Was this billionaire my escape, or just another illusion? Suddenly, a shattering sound broke through the music. I turned, pulse racing. The crystal chandelier above us swayed dangerously, like a silent omen waiting to drop. "Did you see that?" Someone gasped. I looked up, breath hitching in my throat. The billionaire's eyes locked on mine, confusion flickering like a flame. Was he just a distraction? Or something more? I could feel the tension rising. The night was thick with promise, and yet, an eerie chill crept under my skin. Desperation lurked beneath my calm exterior. There was so much left unsaid, questions stacked in my mind, ready to spill. Who was this man? What was his story? The chandelier continued to sway, and fear wrapped around my heart. I took a shaky breath. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sight that met me as I rounded the corner sent a jolt of terror through my veins. The lavish decor now felt like a distorted mockery of privilege and power. Guests crowded in tight clusters, their faces etched with confusion and fear, with whispers spiraling into frantic questions that bounced off the grand walls. And there, at the center of the chaos, was Hemi X. His anger radiated like a dark cloud, locking onto the billionaire with a venomous intensity. The man who had brought me outside now stood at a distance, his posture confident, but eyes flickering with concern. "Why don't you just run back to your little fairy tale? Huh? You think you can just waltz back into my life after all this time?" My ex's tone dripped with disdain, a sharp contrast to the elegance of the gala. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I watched him spew poison like a snake. How absurd it was that here I was, trying to step away from his shadow, only to find him here, still thriving in my nightmares. The laughter he once used to serenade my fears echoed in my mind, and I braced myself for the impact of his words, steeling my heart against the inevitable. Enough. The billionaire's voice broke through, steady and unwavering. You don't get to talk to her like that, or what? You'll protect her? You don't know what she's really like, my ex sneered, taking a step forward. This isn't some charitable venture or newfound whim for you. She's a broken girl playing pretend in your world. Every word felt like a jab to my core, the barbs piercing through the fragile shield I'd put up. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but more than anything, I wanted to disappear. The laughter that had haunted me now morphed into a hot flush of embarrassment that enveloped me. Why did he have this power over me still? But then I saw a billionaire's unwavering gaze fixed on my ex, the muscle in his jaw tightening as he stood his ground. An unfamiliar surge of pride bubbled within me, pushing against the weight of shame. I don't care what you think you know about her, he replied, his voice filled with a calm authority. You don't get to define someone's worth based on your past. She's not yours to claim or ridicule. That a ripple of surprised murmurs traveled through the guests, who had begun to observe the escalating confrontation with wide eyes. My ex scoffed, rolling his eyes. And you? What do you know about her struggles? About the mess she is? This isn't a fairy tale, billionaire. The illusion will crumble. In that moment, my heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the noise around us. The air felt thick and heavy, pregnant with unspoken truths I had buried deep inside. If only he knew, if only I had the courage to share the darkness that loomed within me. But then, like a soft whisper on a gentle breeze cutting through the storm, I felt a hand brush against my arm. Startled, I turned to find a woman, a guest who barely edged into my periphery amidst the crowd. Her gentle eyes sparkled with understanding as she leaned closer. You're stronger than him. Don't forget that. Hope flickered in the darkest corners of my heart, illuminating pathways I thought were forever hidden. The unexpected kindness jolted me back to reality, a tether anchoring me to the moment. With a newfound resolve, I took a step forward, drawing on the warmth of that woman's encouragement. I wouldn't let him diminish me any longer. The billionaire kept his unwavering gaze fixed on my ex, but now it was my voice I needed to add to the fray. I made mistakes, yes, I spoke, clearing my throat. But I'm not broken. No one is. We all have the power to choose who we want to be. I could feel the tension shift, the crowd hanging on my words. My ex's laughter dulled, his bravado faltering as he began to realize the foundation of his mockery was crumbling beneath him. What's this? A moment of clarity? He spat, although his voice wavered slightly, the certainty starting to unravel. You think you've changed? I know I have, I said, finding strength in the rising chorus of defiance around me. Perhaps you never could see me for who I truly am. But I finally can. Just as those words tumbled from my lips, a sudden commotion erupted by the entrance. The doors swung open with a force that echoed through the gallery, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. The crowd gasped, turning as one. And then there he was. My father. The man I had long avoided, haunted by memories I had buried too deep. The look in his eyes mirrored my ex's incredulous mix of disdain and disbelief. Catherine, he called, and the unraveling noise faded into a chilling silence as I found myself locked in a past I thought I had escaped. In that heartbeat, I felt the cruel grip of betrayal intertwining with the flickers of hope that had ignited just moments before. My world, already unsteady, teetered once again on the edge of the unknown. Would I reclaim my voice? Or would the shadows of my past lead me back down a path of doubt and fear? The air hung heavy with a tension that erupted from the sudden presence of my father. His gaze, sharp and unnerving, felt like a spotlight shining on the fractals of my vulnerability. For years, I had crafted an existence away from his expectations, a life that embraced my choices, my flaws, and my lessons. Yet here I stood, at the intersection of my past and present, the bitter tendrils of unresolved pain curling tighter around my heart. Why are you here? I managed to ask, my voice trembling despite my efforts to sound resolute. The guests, previously captivated by my defiance toward my ex, now watched with wide, curious eyes, as if they were witnesses to a spectacle poised on the brink of chaos, that I came to find you, he replied, his tone laced with a strange mixture of desperation and indignation. You think you can just wander off into your new life and forget about your family? About your responsibilities? His words struck a familiar chord, reminding me of countless arguments we had endured, each one molding me into the person my ex now sought to ridicule. Yet amidst the clamor of emotions, I felt a flicker of defiance rekindled by my earlier courage. I would not allow him to rob me of this moment that I am not wandering anywhere, and am not your responsibility to claim, I said, each word feeling heavier yet freeing. I could see the surprise register on his face, a flicker that suggested my stance was something he had not anticipated. The billionaire, steadfast beside me, had yet to blink as he appraised my father with a penetrating gaze that spoke of years of battles fought and won. Maybe you should consider that Catherine deserves to define her own path, free of your shadow, he interjected, his voice steady like rock against the tide. But my father brushed him off, his scornful laughter invigorating my doubts. And who are you to dictate how I raise my daughter? You think you know her? You think you can save her? A wave of unease washed over me, just as my ex's smirk returned. Looks like she's right where she belongs, he taunted, judiciously seizing the moment. Always searching for validation, tethered to these men who only see her as a trophy. No. The cry erupted from my lips, more primal than I intended. I met my ex's eyes, the life I had almost forgotten swirling in the chaos of my memories. I am so much more than your consolation prize, or my father's misguided hopes. The tension shifted, slicing through the thick atmosphere like a knife. I sensed glimmers of compassion from those around me, the small kindnesses of strangers slowly erupting into a supportive embrace. I saw the woman who had bolstered my confidence, standing at the edge of the crowd, her eyes reflecting a shared strength. She nodded in acknowledgement, a lifeline. Then, my father's gaze faltered, as if my declaration had stripped him of his weaponry, exposing vulnerabilities he kept hidden beneath towering walls. You think your power is found in these moments of defiance? Yielding cracks that revealed something deeper. A plea masquerading as a challenge that I might be lost, I admitted, feeling the swell of truth. But am not going to let anyone else define my direction. Not you. Not him. My heart quickened as I gestured to the billionaire, who now stood silently, his solidity a source of both hope and confusion. The air between us buzzed with unsaid words, and I turned to face him fully, catching a glimpse of something profound lurking beneath his Circassian understanding that perhaps we were both grappling with the complexity of our pasts. A silent question hovered between us. Were we ready to confront the histories that tethered us to anger and fear? Before he could respond, my ex stepped forward again, his voice laden with venom. This is a spectacle one you'll regret. You want to play the hero? This will end in tears. Something snapped within me at the weight of those words. The stakes had never felt higher, yet the warmth of community surrounded me. It won't end how you think. You're the one who should be afraid, I countered, surprised by the confidence that tumbled freely from my lips. Just as those words solidified in the presence of my father, a sound broke through, a crackling whisper from the back of the grand hall. A figure pushed through the crowd, once again cloaked in shadows, but this time the air hummed with an electric kind of tension. I squinted, straining to see, and my breath hitched when recognition clawed its way to the surface. The woman was familiar. Her voice echoed softly in my mind, and as she stepped forward, the telltale glint of the locket around her neck shimmered beneath the gala lights, one I had seen before. Mom? I gasped, a chaotic mix of disbelief and sorrow flooding my senses. The reunion of both my parents at this pivotal moment pulled the fragile strands of resolve I had woven into a delicate web, leaving me standing on the precipice of uncertainty once more. Did this gathering of all that I had lost mean to shatter the progress I had fought so hard to achieve? Suffocating hope curdled into fear as memories surged back, me childhood, filled with fractured love, and suffocating expectations clashing violently with the woman I sought to be. This was the crossroads, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath me, teetering on the edge of everything I had longed to escape. Would I reclaim my voice, or would the ghosts of my past pull me down yet again into their suffocating darkness? In that moment, time seemed to suspend, the chaotic clamor of the gala muffled beneath the waves of history crashing against the shore of my present. My heart pounded furiously, an adrenaline rush blazing trails through uncertainty and vulnerability. There she stood, so different yet familiar, the same woman whose laughter would dance through our home, now reduced to brittle echoes. My mother had returned from the shadows. "Catherine," she whispered, her voice trembling, a tender strain in the static air. It held promises and heartache, memories woven into the fabric of our fated connection. But questions surged like a storm. Why now? Why in this moment when clarity was finally dawning? "Mom," I repeated, unsure of what else to say, stepping forward despite the knot of resentment and hope tangled in my chest. My father's expression shifted, an unfamiliar fear creeping into his previously resolute gaze. He stepped back, as if bracing himself from a wave of consequences he had long evaded. The tension between them crackled, filling the room with unspoken histories and unresolved pain. "I need to talk to you," my mother said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears that mirrored my own. "There are things you don't understand. Things I need to explain." As she took a hesitant step towards me, I felt the weight of a lifetime's worth of silence suffocating the space between us. Part of me wanted to embrace her, to cling on to the idea of a loving mother who could make everything right again. But the other part, hardened by hurt and frustration, recoiled, recalling years of neglect and emotional distance. "You could have tried," I said, my voice sharper than intended, fighting the surge of tears clawing for freedom. "You left. You chose to leave when I needed you." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "And I know that doesn't excuse my absence. But what I did was to protect you from him, from our family. There are things you don't know." The piercing truth in her words demanded my attention, crumbling the foundations of my anger like dry clay beneath water. The world around us blurred: the guests, the gala, the man beside me who had offered strength in my tumultuous moments, all faded momentarily, immersed in the emotional tide between a mother and daughter once more reunited amidst broken lives. MYX stepped forward, relishing the tension as he recognized the soft cracks that formed in the tenuous bond one had built around my heart. "Isn't this perfect? A tragic family reunion. How Shakespearean." His smirk dripped with malice, taunting me to falter, but my heart was no longer open to his cruelty. I had found my voice in this tempest, resonating with something deeper than my fears. "What's more tragic is how you've turned my life into a farce," I retorted, the words pouring out with a fierceness that sent a ripple through the crowd surrounding us. Their eyes moved like a tide, drawn to my vulnerability and burgeoning strength. "Stop it!" My father's frustration erupted, his tone desperate to quell the mutiny swirling within our family. "This isn't the place. Maybe it is the place." My voice rang out, igniting a flicker of surprise and admiration in those who watched. "This has been our stage for far too long. I am done letting you script my life." The billionaire, whom I had almost forgotten, hovered near, edged closer, his presence steadying against the storm. He caught my eye, a silent affirmation of my courage mirrored in his gaze, but I could see the questioning that glimmered beneath. Was I ready to confront the truth hidden beneath the dust of our pasts? As my mother's hands reached out, trembling but warm, I felt the eerie sensation that something shifted within me in uncharted, unsettling territory. "Catherine," she pleaded, her eyes now wells of regret and yearning. "You need to know about what really happened. About the choice I made to protect you." Just then, a sudden loud crash broke the air, drawing everyone's attention. A nearby table had collapsed, cutting through the tension like a scream in the night, leaving a hollow echo in the grand hall. Glassware shattered, wine splattered against polished floors, festooning the gathering with a stark reminder of frailty much like my own facade. The commotion resonated like a cymbal, laying open a fracture in our moment of reconciliation. Gasps rippled through the guests as a stream of chaos surged into our sacred space. The warmth of hope evaporated, replaced by the anxiety of a gathering unraveling, where secrets could easily be drowned in the debris. In the confusion, I spotted my mother quickly retreating, her face drawn in sudden panic. Fear gripped my heart, a chasm widening as she slipped from view, her whispered promises swallowed by the chaos. "Mom, wait!" I cried, desperate to halt her retreating figure, but the tide of people surged and blocked my path. Before I could react, my ex caught my arm, an unsettling smirk dancing on his lips. "Run off then, Catherine. Maybe it's best not to face what's coming for you. You'll never escape it." But as the shadows shunted in, I could see the glimmer of the unknown before me, aching for resolution and the hope of connection, a call to explore those hidden truths. Behind my circumstances, a sudden realization began to manifest, pulling at my core. Everything was shifting, and I stood on the threshold of yet another revelation. The promise of resolution, however daunting, remained just out of reach. The echoes of my mother's words hovered above the storm, waiting for clarity as the evening pulled apart at the seams. In the damp air, amidst broken glass and lingering tension, I faced an entirely new crossroads, one where secrets from my past lingered like specters, waiting to unveil. And just like that, the game had changed again. The stakes rose higher as I beheld my mother's form vanish into the chaos, and I was left standing with unresolved families, scarring histories, and a heart on the cusp of unraveling once more. Would I have the strength to confront the unfolding truth, or would the gathering storm wash everything away yet again? I stood amid the swirling chaos of the gala. The echoes of laughter and chattering morphed into a distant hum, muted beneath the weight of everything that had just transpired. My heart raced, not just from anger or fear, but from an unshakable sensation that I was teetering on the brink of a world I didn't understand but felt eerily drawn to as the last remnants of my mother's presence faded into the anonymity of the crowd. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the uncertainty still swirling within me. I gathered enough resolve to push back against my ex's taunting grip on my arm, pulling away sharply. The flicker of shock in his eyes momentarily rooted me in a strange sense of power. "I won't let you dictate my emotions any longer," I proclaimed, the words sharper than intended but laced with a newfound conviction. I spotted the billionaire in the distance. His composed demeanor seemed a beacon of quiet strength amid the gathering storm. He offered me a meaningful glance, little more than an affirmation that perhaps not all connections were destined for chaos. But the fabric of my situation continued to fray. My father's voice echoed in the chaos, raising his tone again in desperation. "Catherine, we need to leave. Now." He reached for my hand, but the stubbornness within me flared. "I am not going anywhere until I understand this, until I understand her," I insisted, no longer afraid of the upheaval. Each heartbeat resonated with the memory of years spent filling the void left by my mother's absence. Clenching my jaw at the anger lodged deep in my chest, a distant part of me recognized that my ex's smirk still lingered nearby, his predatory gaze tracking my every reaction. But as I turned to face my father, I felt the unsettling tremor of anticipation wash over me. Would he finally admit the truth? "You don't understand what you're asking," my father murmured, a tide of frustration straining his voice. "Some truths are better left buried. Have you ever tried to unearth them, to see what lies beneath?" I challenged, emboldened by my own words. As if summoned by some darker instinct, I glimpsed more uncertainty flickering in my father's eyes. The raw vulnerability I glimpsed briefly kindled hope yet again. In that moment, another noise pierced through the air, a distinct sound bereft of frantic energy, one that drew everyone's attention like a moth to flame. A soft, fragile voice emerged from amid the throng. A smell of something sweet and baked wafted through the hall as a young girl approached the table where remnants of the collapsed serve lay. With her hands clutching a plate of cupcakes, she looked up, wide-eyed and blissfully unaware of the tension surrounding her. "Excuse me," she chimed sweetly, innocence radiating from her small frame. "Would you all like a cupcake? I helped bake them." She beamed, showcasing the brightly decorated treats like treasures worth their weight in gold. The wave of kindness disarmed some guests, but also broadly shifted the air in the room. A ripple of laughter escaped, and for a brief moment, the heaviness surrounding me evaporated, offering a glimpse of warmth and connection that had felt so far from reach moments ago. In her pure-hearted offering, I found an elusive thread of hope, something untainted by the mess of adult lives that I knelt before her, my heart swelling with the gentleness of her spirit. "Thank you," I told her sincerely, taking a cupcake adorned with pastel sprinkles. The sweet bite ignited not just my taste buds but something deeper within, a reminder of simpler times, of family moments that had once been whole before all the fractures began. But just as hope flared, another dissonant voice emerged from the crowd. The billionaire, stepping closer to my side. An act of kindness in a moment of chaos. Sometimes, that's all it takes to find clarity. His voice held a gravity that pierced through the lingering tension, igniting a spark in my chest. Gathering a breath, I let the moment settle, allowing myself to be completely present. But beneath my fleeting contentment, the tempest of unresolved issues continued to bubble below, warning that this fleeting distraction would not resolve the tidal wave of deeper conflict lurking just beyond the surface. That I turned back to my father, finding a flicker of something akin to sadness in his gaze. What truth have you held so tightly that it binds our family in chains? You chose silence. What were you protecting me from? The moment was fragile, the air charged with both a sense of urgency and tenderness, as if the very atmosphere adjusted to brace for an inevitable storm of words. Before he could respond, a figure stepped forward from behind him, an unfamiliar face bobbing above the crowd, the unmistakable silhouette of my mother. That I blinked, stunned, as she stood there, uncertainty etched on her face, the raw reality of her emotions swirling like a tempest of their own. Suddenly, the hurricane of feelings began to rage within me, a new fear, rage, hope, and she spoke, her voice a haunting echo I had longed to hear. "Catherine," she breathed, "I must tell you everything. The time has come." And just like that, the lines I had drawn surrounding my heart were clawed apart, and I was left teetering once again on the precipice of the unknown, waiting to be swept away into revelations that could change everything. Would the truth strengthen the roots of our fractured family or further shatter the thin glass of what remained? My breath caught in my throat, a paradox of love and hurt slicing sharply through me as my mother's voice reverberated through the chaos of the gala. She stood there, radiant yet weary, her vulnerable gaze searching mine, as if these years of silence could be undone in an instant. It felt as though the universe had collapsed into this single moment of truth I had longed for yet feared. Like the edge of a knife, that I fought the impulse to retreat, held strong by the strange flickering of hope ignited within me by the little girl's earlier gesture. "Mom." The word escaped my lips in a whisper, fragile and unsteady, as if acknowledging her out loud might shatter the moment. In a heartbeat, everything else melted away, the laughter, the disdainful whispers of my ex, the cries of confusion, all faded into a blurry backdrop where only she and I existed. For a second, it seemed as if my memories enveloped us, storing away every time I had reached out into the void to catch a glimpse of her face in photographs. How many hours I had spent wondering why she had left, her eyes filled with a well of deep emotion, shimmering beneath the layers of sadness and regret. "Catherine, I know I've lost so much time, and I'm so sorry for that." I didn't mean to. She hesitated, as if her words had become trapped in her throat, leaving only crackling silence between us. "Sorry won't change anything," I found myself saying, the hurt coursing through me sharpening the edges of my words. "You left me without any answers. Do you even comprehend what it was like?" My ex stepped forward, excitement dancing in his eyes, thinking to seize the vulnerability of my reunion. "Oh, look at this, the perfect mother-daughter moment," he taunted. "How sentimental. You should have stayed away, Catherine. You'd have been better off." But at that moment, the billionaire, the calm amidst the storm, placed a hand gently on my shoulder as if to anchor me. The warmth of his touch offered solace, and though we were surrounded by chaos, his presence felt undeniably grounding. "You're stronger than they realize," he murmured, "and so is your mother." I turned my gaze toward my mother, her sorrow piercing through the laughter and gossip surrounding us. "You could have at least tried to explain. We deserve that." Her shoulders quivered slightly as she succumbed to the weight of my demand. "I thought I was protecting you. There were things you weren't ready to hear. You had a life to build," she confessed, each word laced with regret. "But I was wrong to think I could just disappear. Where did you go?"